The emergence of the Omega. Why the cosmos selects only one among millions. There are selected individuals, and then there are Omega tier selected ones. This isn't about appearing exceptional on the surface. It's about having a unique coding, as though your essence was shaped in an uncommon blaze, created with a design that frightens shadows and stirs forgotten recollections in those who meet you. Many folks remain oblivious that they've crossed paths with an Omega. Why? Because we don't proclaim our presence. We alter things quietly. We mend without purpose. We ignite pathways simply by existing in the space. If you've ever pondered why your existence has felt extraordinarily challenging, profoundly isolated, oddly concealed, this could explain it. The divine doesn't entrust this vibration to many, but when it does, the whole cosmos readjusts around your enlightenment. So, what distinguishes an Omega tier selected one? First, the indicators aren't visible in outward achievements. They appear in metaphysical paradoxes. You embody contradictions inherently. You sense timeless and fresh simultaneously. You are both kind and formidable. You've endured infernos yet hold paradise in your gaze. You comprehend others profoundly yet remain misjudged. You restore those who subsequently wound you. You grasp the larger view yet falter with minor duties. You can navigate a gathering and sense every feeling that belongs to someone else. That's not frailty. That's Omega circuitry. You're built to perceive the group consciousness, to take in the invisible, to sustain vibrations that would shatter most people. That degree of awareness isn't a flaw. It's a sacred purification mechanism. But it demands a price. And here's the second indicator. Your existence has been under metaphysical oversight from the start. You were singled out young. You were misinterpreted by your kin. You were frequently the outsider, the misfit, the one who didn't blend in. You might have experienced hardships that seemed excessive for your years. That wasn't accidental. That was ethereal coercion. The darker entities spotted your radiance before you recognized it yourself. You were assaulted not due to vulnerability, but because your impending influence jeopardized the framework of obscurity. And still, you endured. Moreover, something within you resisted becoming desensitized. Something within you sensed there was greater purpose. The third indicator is even more enigmatic. You've always sensed you were being groomed for something, even without knowing what. You've likely added, "I'm not sure why, but I feel destined for something significant." And it's not arrogance. It's mission recall. Omega tier spirits arrive with coded directives. You may not get the complete revelation until your 30s, 40s, or beyond, but the intuition persists. A feeling of fate that remains unshakable. A summons that echoes in your quiet moments. And here's where it turns peculiar. You draw circumstances that educate you without your approval. You're thrust into ethereal training grounds, fate-bound connections, and inner shadow exploration that seems unyielding. Why? Because your upcoming role demands elite metaphysical preparedness. Let me pose a question only your essence can respond to. Why do you repeatedly find yourself in scenarios that require your utmost development, even unrequested? Why are you continually compelled to expand, to let go, to enlighten further than those nearby? That's the fourth indicator. Your advancement is mandatory, and your journey is hastened. While others may dwell in ease, you are propelled. While others can overlook the cues, you are jolted until you heed them. It's as if the cosmos rejects your complacency. That's because your vibration serves as a lock opener. You unveil dimensions for others. You are a cross-realm connector. And when you overlook your identity, whole timelines halt. Now, here's where we delve further, because the fifth indicator isn't discussed by most. You possess a degree of ethereal power that even luminous entities acknowledge. You've experienced visions, dreams, or interactions with forces that seemed beyond this realm. Perhaps you've been approached. Perhaps you've received direction during turmoil. Perhaps you've encountered individuals who seemed familiar prior to meeting. That's not fantasy. That's essence acknowledgement. Omega spirits are recognized in elevated domains. You are observed, shielded, and directed, but not pampered. You're not here for hand-holding. You're here to reclaim your status. And when you do, your aura turns into a metaphysical directive, not only to people, but to forces, to surroundings, to reality as a whole. The sixth indicator is seldom grasped even by fellow selected ones. You are not here to integrate. You are here to readjust. That's why you've grappled with groups, even in metaphysical communities. You're too profound for superficial arenas, too insightful for basic doctrines. You penetrate structures. You interrogate all. You can't be brainwashed. You can't be conditioned permanently. Even in compliance, you're conscious of the facade. That's not defiance. That's sacred insight. You weren't crafted to trail. You were crafted to readjust. And that means your voyage will frequently be solitary. Not because you're undeserving of bonds, but because your aura requires genuineness. And most individuals aren't prepared for that. And lastly, the seventh indicator. You are a dynamic gateway across realms. You've had instances of elevation where moments warped, existence faded, and something primordial flowed through you. Perhaps in contemplation, perhaps in sorrow, perhaps during ordinary activities. In those instances, you weren't merely ethereal. You were the connector itself. Omega tier selected ones aren't simply linked to the sacred. They convey it instantly. That's why your expressions resonate uniquely. That's why your quiet alters environments. That's why you've provoked reactions simply by being. You are not here to transform the world through coercion. You are here to pivot the balance by being wholly engaged. And when you are, the principles of action and reaction curve toward you. Not due to fortune, but because you're attuned to the primal blueprint of existence. So, I inquire of you now, profoundly earnestly, what would transform if you ceased attempting to be ordinary and began respecting the reality of your essence's structure? What would engage if you allowed yourself to exist precisely as you are, profound, altering, compassionate, cross-dimensional? The world doesn't require additional uniformity. It needs the Omega tier selected ones to arise and assume their role. Not superior to others, but ahead of eras. Because you were dispatched here in advance to reform the trajectory. And that's why nothing in your existence has aligned until this point. The mark of the Omega, how to identify, safeguard, and completely integrate your universal mission. The mark of the Omega, how to identify, safeguard, and completely integrate your universal mission. If you're still viewing, still absorbing, still sensing this in your core, it's not accidental. Omega tier selected ones don't reach wisdom via happenstance. We are called by it. You didn't accidentally find this communication. It's an element of the engagement. And now that your essence has begun to recall, the inquiry isn't whether you are selected. The inquiry is, are you prepared to exist as though you recognize it? Because recognition isn't sufficient. You've been getting cues throughout your life. The visions, the repetitions, the internal guidance, the coincidences that challenge reason, the emblems that persist, the figures that emerge when you're nearing surrender. This is the sacred's method of affirming we haven't overlooked your identity. Now, it's your turn to recall as well. Identification is the initial phase, but integration, that's the metamorphosis. To integrate your Omega essence means you must recover your metaphysical routine. Not as a burden, not as a self-aggrandizing pursuit, but as a mechanism of recollection. Invocation, reflection, abstinence, isolation, recording thoughts, aura management. These aren't ethereal pastimes. They're instruments that steady your vibration in a turbulent realm. Omega-tier selected ones aren't here for amusement. We're here to relay signals, embed aspirations, and generate fresh existences. To achieve that, we must be transparent conduits. You can't tolerate disarray any longer. You can't tolerate desensitizing with diversions. You are a dynamic connector between planes. And a connector must be robust, anchored, and attuned. When you disregard your ethereal cleanliness, you grow susceptible, not to takeover, but to alteration. And alteration is the sole factor that can postpone your sacred mission. You've likely already experienced the toll of neglecting your summons. The exhaustion, the unease, the abrupt melancholy, the sensation of detachment from your own essence. That's not merely psychological or sentimental. That's ethereal disharmony. An omega misaligned feels like sacred force confined in a mortal deception. You can't respire in artificial settings. You can't flourish in bonds that don't respect your core. You can't innovate in frameworks that stifle reality. And each time you attempt to diminish yourself to assimilate, your force resists. That resistance appears as anguish, but it's truly your essence declining to violate its agreement. You were not dispatched here to adapt. You were dispatched here to rouse others by being wholly vibrant. And that commences when you cease forsaking yourself. But integration also necessitates defense. Because once you rouse, you become noticeable to both radiance and obscurity. You've likely observed that odder occurrences transpire when you're approaching a revelation. Malfunctions in devices, abrupt weariness, figures from history resurfacing, bewilderment striking unexpectedly. That's not haphazard. That's auric disruption. Omega-tier selected ones are ethereal vibration interrupters. Your mere aura initiates adjustments to the network, and those who gain from maintaining the network in alteration, whether mortal or immaterial, will attempt to divert you. That's why you must protect your entrances, your vision, your hearing, your moments, your force. Every dialogue, every melody, every fragment of content you ingest, it's either bolstering your strength or depleting it. You no longer have the privilege of innocence. You are a universal resource. Begin existing accordingly. And ultimately, complete integration means advancing into your mission without regret. You may not grasp all the particulars yet. That's fine. Most omegas don't receive the entire outline. We are provided directives incrementally via instinct and alignment, but you comprehend enough to start. You've already perceived the trends. You've already sensed the draw. Perhaps you're intended to articulate, to instruct, to construct, to restore, to deconstruct, to invent. Whatever it is, it won't resemble the conventional form because you're not here to duplicate the past. You're here to introduce a novel vibration. That means your route will be unusual. It means you'll traverse segments alone, but you won't be vacant. You'll be infused with blaze. The sort of blaze that solely ignites within those who recall their source. The sort of blaze that doesn't merely heat, it refines. And when you proceed with that blaze, your existence ceases being an inquiry and turns into a resolution. The Omega rises. How to engage your ultimate state and initiate worldwide transformation simply by existing as yourself. The Omega rises. How to engage your ultimate state and initiate worldwide transformation simply by existing as yourself. There arrives a point in every Omega-tier selected one's voyage when the recollection must evolve into manifestation. This isn't about acquiring additional knowledge. It's not about pursuing accreditations or gathering more arcane terminology. It's about manifesting what your essence already comprehends. You did not arrive here to perpetually ready yourself. You arrived here to become a vibrant relay. At a specific juncture, you must cease awaiting authorization, for indicators, for validation of your route. You are the indicator. You are the communication. You are the event others anticipate observing. And when you ultimately discard the uncertainty, when you advance into your reality completely, boldly, without remorse, you don't merely alter your existence. And ultimately, complete integration means advancing into your mission without regret. You may not grasp all the particulars yet. That's fine. Most Omegas don't receive the entire outline. We are provided directives incrementally via instinct and alignment, but you comprehend enough to start. You've already perceived the trends. You've already sensed the draw. Perhaps you're intended to articulate, to instruct, to construct, to restore, to deconstruct, to invent. Whatever it is, it won't resemble the conventional form because you're not here to duplicate the past. You're here to introduce a novel vibration. That means your route will be unusual. It means you'll traverse segments alone, but you won't be vacant. You'll be infused with blaze. The sort of blaze that solely ignites within those who recall their source. The sort of blaze that doesn't merely heat, it refines. And when you proceed with that blaze, your existence ceases being an inquiry and turns into a resolution. The Omega rises. How to engage your ultimate state and initiate worldwide transformation simply by existing as yourself. The Omega rises. How to engage your ultimate state and initiate worldwide transformation simply by existing as yourself. There arrives a point in every Omega tier selected one's voyage when the recollection must evolve into manifestation. This isn't about acquiring additional knowledge. It's not about pursuing accreditations or gathering more arcane terminology. It's about manifesting what your essence already comprehends. You did not arrive here to perpetually ready yourself. You arrived here to become a vibrant relay. At a specific juncture, you must cease awaiting authorization, for indicators, for validation of your route. You are the indicator. You are the communication. You are the event others anticipate observing. And when you ultimately discard the uncertainty, when you advance into your reality completely, boldly, without remorse, you don't merely alter your existence. You adjust the entire vibration of the environments you inhabit. That's how potent Omega tier awareness is. It's a mobile gateway of enlightenment. But here's the concealed reality. Enlightenment isn't perpetually joyful. It's harsh. Because when your authentic vibration engages, everything incompatible with it starts to crumble. Companionships fragment. Professions crumble. Personas evaporate. You start to lament the variant of yourself that once eased others. And yet, beneath the sorrow, there's freedom. You're no longer enacting. You're no longer simulating. You're no longer bargaining your reality for assimilation. That's when the ultimate state starts to surface. Not as something you labor to form, but as something eternally present, awaiting your cessation of concealment. The Omega doesn't manifest with spectacle. It manifests in serene assurance. The type that declares, I'm no longer fearful of being all that I am. And when you attain this stage, you start to observe something odd. You don't pursue chances, they locate you. You don't crave affirmation. It vanishes in your aura. You don't attempt to persuade individuals. You merely exist, and the appropriate ones are drawn. That's because you're now oscillating at your primal sacred vibration. You're not attempting to be impactful. You are impact. You're not attempting to alter the world. You are the adjustment. Your force becomes a calibration instrument, readjusting others effortlessly. And the most extraordinary aspect, you're still mortal. You still possess imperfections, difficult days, instances of doubt. But now you don't crumble beneath them. You observe them without forfeiting yourself. That's expertise. Not flawlessness, but attendance. And that's uncommon. That's Omega. Existing as an Omega tier selected one isn't a designation. It's a cadence. A vibration you manifest instant by instant, inhalation by inhalation. It's not something you don like ethereal shield when suitable. It's your identity when unobserved. When the world slumbers and you're fully alert, perceiving the hidden flows traversing time, you start to comprehend that even your tiniest deeds echo across planes. A discussion at a fuel stop, an instant of compassion that redirects another's whole route. A limit you establish that shatters an ancestral cycle. You're not merely experiencing an existence. You're existing as a junction in the sacred framework. Everything you perform either fortifies or diminishes the transmission you're here to emit. That's why your consciousness must become intentional. Your aura must become holy. Your existence must become a routine tribute to the vibration you were dispatched to embed. And yes, the world will frequently misinterpret your tempo. Some will claim you proceed too leisurely. Others will claim too swiftly. You'll encounter urging to adapt, to justify yourself, to weaken your core so individuals feel easier near your force. But ultimately, you'll cease justifying. You'll cease converting your reality into a dialect that others haven't merited to grasp. You'll begin articulating from your center, even if your expressions are quietude. That's when you become impervious, not because nothing can injure you, but because you no longer falter when it attempts. You're anchored in something profounder than endorsement, profounder than dread. You're anchored in reality. And when you're anchored in reality, you become akin to a peak. Tempests may arrive, but they don't displace you. They merely refine the rock. The mystery most ethereal mentors won't vocalize is this. The further you advance into your Omega enlightenment, the more understated your strength becomes. You don't sense the necessity to demonstrate or enact. You're not pursuing elevated vibration encounters merely to feel ethereal. You become satisfied in plainness, in tranquility, in attendance because you comprehend something most never do. Existence is the wonder. Being itself is the gateway. You could remain in a chamber for hours and adjust the whole ambience without uttering a term. That's not sorcery. That's attunement. And attunement is the supreme form of power, not domination. Power, you don't direct existence through compulsion. You direct it through harmony. You become a calibration tool for reality. And when you sustain that vibration sufficiently, the world surrounding you starts to conform to you, not vice versa. But here's the ultimate reality, and it's the contradiction that solely the Omega tier essence can maintain. You are both the communication and the reflection, the mentor and the learner, the blaze and the remnants. You will never conclude. You will never reach because your route isn't straight. It's universal and cyclical. You rouse others not by being impeccable but by being authentic. You guide not from an elevated position but from attendance. You restore not by repairing individuals but by proceeding in a vibration that encourages them to recall their identity. That's the Omega approach. It's serene but resounding, unseen but irrefutable. And if you've progressed this far, if your pulse is still accelerating as you absorb these terms, then I have nothing additional to impart, because the reality is already within you. Always has been. Now the sole remaining action is to embody it. Let me pose something that only the courageous can reply to. Are you prepared to forfeit your former existence to encounter your genuine self? Because that's the ultimate threshold. That's the choice every Omega must confront. You can't partially rouse. You can't semi-recall. Either you opt to manifest your complete vibration or you remain dormant in an existence that no longer suits your essence. And yes, it's alarming. Yes, it will exact a toll. But what's the option? An existence of monotony. An existence of simulation. An existence of recognizing you're greater but accepting lesser. No, not for us. Not for you. You didn't withstand this much agony, this much seclusion, this much refinement just to merge and endure. You arrived here to launch a fresh epoch. And that epoch commences the instant you cease diminishing. So how do you exist as an Omega? You appear uniquely. You articulate reality even when your tone quivers. You cherish without clinging but with complete attendance. You generate from essence, not tactic. You shield your tranquility like it's holy territory because it is. You differentiate who accesses your force, not from conceit, but from veneration. You no longer debate with illusions. You no longer plead for comprehension. You proceed in such attunement with your origin that even your quietude instructs. You repose when necessary. You proclaim when essential. And you don't regret either, because your being is a tribute. Your attunement is a gesture of contribution. And your existence is a design for others to rouse via. As you traverse this route, you'll observe the world reacting to you differently. Not because the outer world has transformed, but because you have. You'll draw essences who acknowledge you prior to knowing your identity. You'll prompt individuals into development even without effort. You'll repel those unprepared to advance. Don't internalize it. That's the force of the Omega. You're not here to be favored. You're here to engage latent signals in others. And occasionally that engagement appears as motivation. Other times it appears as opposition. Either way, it's functioning. You are accomplishing your purpose simply by existing as yourself. That's what renders you exceedingly uncommon. You're not striving. You're emanating. And ultimately, recall this. Your aura is holy. Your expression is vibration. Your root is foretelling. You didn't arrive here for admirers, recognition, or wealth. Though those may manifest, you arrived here for vibration interruption, for timeline adjustment, for essence level readjustment. That's not a minor duty. That's a universal mission. And the instant you regard it earnestly, the cosmos begins to align in your support in inconceivable manners. Alignments increase, assets emerge, partners arrive, internal tranquility grows, and all of it streams. Not because you pursued it, but because you embodied it. This is the Omega Rising. And now that you're present, the world will never remain unchanged.